Hello, and welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour. We are here today on June 26th. We're going to talk about cooking management, but first I will introduce my guests and co-hosts, and we'll start with Adam.
Hello, I'm Adam. You're doing beers now, or?
Tell us a little bit about yourself, sorry.
Sure. So I've been doing ServiceNow development for about 2 or 3 years at this point. Work for a company in the travel industry, so we're doing okay. We'll leave it at that.
All right, thanks, Adam. Chuck?
Hey, this is Chuck Tomasi from ServiceNow. Been here for just over 10 years. Oh, finally cleared that milestone. and was a customer for a couple of years before that. I am a senior developer evangelist, and I look forward to working on what we're working on today. Let's go build some tables.
All right. And I'm Brad Tilton. I'm a developer advocate with the developer program here at ServiceNow. I've been with ServiceNow for almost 4 years and in the ServiceNow ecosystem as a customer, partner, and now employee for about 12 years. So I'm excited about what we're going to do today, but before we get into that, we are going to introduce our beverages. So we will start with Adam.
Got the Sam Adams Summer Ale today.
Ooh.
We picked this one up because Sam Adams is the only brewery that makes a multi-pack that has no IPAs, and my wife hates IPAs.
Nice.
I think Kona Brewing does also.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I know Kona. We'll keep an eye out for that one.
All right. I have a special one today. This is a Lithuanian beer that my son-in-law got me. I'm not sure how you say that. It looks like Saturdays, but I'm told it's something more like Schwerdries. Schwerdries. Something close. The other rest of it, the Baltus White, I got. So this is a Heffy.
Nice. And I have a Innis and Gunn barrel-aged ale. So it's aged in Scotch barrels, which I have not had this before, but I'm very excited
on that.
It's actually a lot lower than I thought. It's like 6.6. So.
Wow. I would expect something north of 8 or 9. The perfect ones can really put you on your feet.
Yeah. All right. Well, I am both the host and the driver today. So let me introduce what we're going to do. So today's topic is something that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. And the timing is kind of finally right to do it on the show. But I'm a big fan of cooking meat, especially smoking meat, and I enjoy all sorts of cooking. But one of the things that I want to do is create an app to manage, the pretty long sessions that you go through when you are smoking meat, or really just any sort of cooking or grilling. There's, crock pot, all sorts of things that take a long time. And so I want to build an app to manage that process and eventually integrate with my Wi-Fi thermometer and some other things. And I've got lots of ideas. At some point, I would like to send a survey to my kids after we cook and see how the meal was, mainly so that a month later I can show them that they gave something a high score when they say that they
you
no
gave
longer
it 5
like that
forks.
That's right. So yeah, with lots of opportunities of where to go. Today we're going to start by creating the data model for this app. So we're going to get in there, make some decisions on, what types of things we should do on tables and all that sort of thing. So I'm going to transition into screen sharing here, but maybe Chuck, do you have any just overall tips or words of wisdom for us in creating data models while I'll put you on the spot here while I change into a screen share?
Yeah, it's really, I learned something in talking with David Liu recently. He told me that one of Fred Luddy's stories was, think about something for a week, then go build it in a couple of hours. I mean, if you get the data model right, everything else falls into place. I often draw pictures on whiteboards and windows and papers long before I ever set to making a table, because I want to know what those relationships are. If you get it wrong, it can be very painful months or years later to say, oh, this should have been a many-to-many instead of a reference field. And changing the data model and all of the scripts that interact with it, all the flows that interact with it, can be very, very hard, and you'll have to do a lot of testing later. So the data model is the first thing you lay down. It's the foundation of your application, and you want to make sure that foundation is solid as can be. Not to say you can't extend it later, but to change fundamental things like, we need another table between A and B. That gets to be a big challenge and can be very costly later on.
Awesome. Thanks, Chuck. All right. And I should have said this. One of the big reasons I wanted to have Adam on is he is really active in the SNDev Slack on the cooking channel. I think he's always doing something and experimenting, and it's pretty fun to watch over there. So I thought that would be a great guest to have on and help us kind of guide where we need to go. Because ultimately, I do a lot of grilling and smoking, but I would like to make this in a way that you could really use it just to manage, links to recipes and when you use something and how you deviate it and things like that.
Can you make your font just a wee bit bigger?
Oh, I sure can. Let's zoom in. One. Let's go one more. All right.
Lovely.
And then, whoa, that messed things up.
Whoa.
I want people to be able to see my new button.
Oh, okay.
There we go. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Guided App Creator to create our data model to start with here. So I am here in my company applications. You can see my company's applications is me playing with components in my instance. But we'll go ahead and come in here to create new. And oh, this is almost the perfect size. So we're going to call this cooking management. We're going to keep it pretty generic here. So when I create cooking management, I'm gonna be a good developer here and write a description. So we're gonna manage cooks across different. I don't know.
I would have had more fun with that and said, "Smoke them if you got them."
Let's do it. Wow. And then
how about that scope name?
I
struggle with this all the time.
I know. And I hate a cutoff word in my scope name. So let's see if this works.
No icon?
Oh, I should have put an icon. I don't think I have a great icon for this, but we can add one later. So I do want to create at least, I think I want a couple of roles for this. So generally, I don't know about you guys, but when I create an app like this, I usually want like an admin role. So this, the admin would be able to manage the settings of the app basically, and that allows me to let somebody else do that. I don't always have to be the person managing it. So we'll go admin, and then I probably want a user role. So this person can actually do the cooks and the recipes. And I think for this, we'll probably leave it at that. I don't know that I need more. roles. So we'll continue. I am going to want a mobile app for this eventually. So we'll go ahead and select that, have it create it. And you know what, just for the heck of it, let's create a workspace as well.
This is even if you're in doubt, click the mobile button. It's such a time saver. If you think later you might, there's a remote possibility that you want mobile. Way easier. You get your launch pages set up. You get a whole bunch of the actions and functions and data model. Even if it's not right, it'll be close, and it's a head start.
Yeah, and the other part of that is the workspace. Same thing.
Yeah,
because with Workspace, I believe right now that's the only way to spin up a new workspace is through Guided App Creator. So if you think your app might need a workspace, I would just go ahead and add it.
Doesn't cost
I don't think
anything.
it creates that much anyway, so you're not. It's not like you're adding a ton of files to your app. All right, so we have finally created the app on my my single noted employee instance here, which took a little while. So we need to create some tables. We know we want at least a couple of tables. I want a table for recipes that's probably going to have a URL to whatever recipe I'm using, maybe an image field if I happen to be using a recipe from a physical book, which I have a couple of, but not too many. I primarily use stuff online. We'll need a table to manage like the cooking session. So what recipe did I use? What am I cooking with? What kind of food am I cooking?
An instantiation of that recipe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so an instantiation. So I think the first decision is for this cooking table, do we want to extend the task table or do we want to create just a brand new table?
Okay, what do you get for task that you think you'll need in cooking? So task would give you state assigned to, workflow capability. I guess you could attach a workflow to anything. We're not talking about the recipe itself. You're talking about the instance of the recipe, so to speak, or the reference to the recipe.
Yeah. So in the world of smoking meats, we would call this a cook. That's kind of you've got your 18-hour brisket cook, and so this would be basically this cooking session. So we're not really going to assign it, or if I tried to assign this to someone else in my family, it's not going to go very well. I'm not going to probably no approvals.
Right.
So I'm kind of thinking we just want a
new table. Although it again doesn't cost you anything if you extend task and need it later. It's easier to say yes now, and
you might not be assigning cooks out, but there are other people that take turns, work on a rotation. So
that's true.
Could be done.
I could get assigned a cook. And I guess I mean I'm not the only person in my household I mean my wife's actually a much better cook than I am, and my kids are getting into it now, so maybe we extend the task table and use some of that assignment functionality, because you're right, it doesn't really cost us anything other than a whole bunch of extra tables, or a bunch of extra fields on the table.
It's not a clear no, so I would say go for it.
Besides, you could have a barbecue assignment group. You could have stir fry assignment.
That's true.
You could do with that.
You could have a business calendar.
All right, let's extend task. You guys have convinced me.
Cooking SLAs.
Oh,
I'm worked.
I am generally a fan of SLAs. Like, let me prove how I have been successful, but I don't know if I want an SLA. That's actually a point of contention. It can be something that is difficult when I'm cooking something and my wife's cooking something and we need to be done at the same time. it gets contentious
You
sometimes.
certainly don't want to take it out of the smoker early.
Well, definitely. Well, if it's done, you can take it out and let it sit in a cooler for a while. A lot of times. All right, so we have all these task fields. We've got location. Due date is actually a decent one here. I think we'll want to use like comments or work notes for some notes about it. What do we need? So we will need a recipe reference.
Jace came up with an icon for you. You'll have to check the LCHH Slack channel.
All right.
When we get back to the app config.
So let's, we'll need a recipe reference. And I know we don't have the table, but I can reference a different table for the time being.
That you can.
Which, sure. So we'll need recipe. What else? What else do we want to track in a cook?
Do you need anything around the metrics of, high temp, low temp, cook time? That's probably going to be in the recipe itself.
Yeah. So we will want. So I think we already have a start and end on task.
You do actual start and actual end, which is the fields work underscore start and work underscore end. You could use that to say what your actuals were. Your recipe may call for an hour 30 or 16 hours or whatever it is. You could put the actuals into this table to say, well, okay, next time I do this, I know that it's going to be 15 minutes early or 2 hours later or whatever it is. Because there's what the recipe calls for and then what your cookware actually does, as we're soon discovering with new appliances.
That's right.
You measure the ambient temp when you're doing yours?
I usually don't.
A lot. The outdoor temp.
We should do that, because if you're, I'm in Southeast Texas and it's pretty warm most of the time.
You don't need wood.
I think that is a good one.
Just put it in the smoker and let it do its thing. We just wave out the window here in Phoenix.
There is a time of year where I could low smoke some things. You have the same thing in Phoenix.
Just put a magnifying glass on it. Use the sun.
And that would be probably an integer.
I think so. And then
make it a phone number. Why not? Just for fun.
Country code.
So we will want. So I want to know what I am cooking on. So I've got.
Oh yes.
I have a Weber kettle that I grill and sometimes do a longer cook on, and then I've got a big stick burner smoker, and I've also got a pellet cooker. So I've got a few different things I use outside.
You've got the hardware, but you've also got the fuel too.
That's right. Yeah, I want to know what kind of wood I'm smoking with, or what kind of charcoal I'm using, because there's a big difference in different kinds of charcoal. And
oh man, you're gonna have vendor management in here.
That's right. We can onboard a new charcoal vendor. So I could use a CI for something. I don't.
Oh, that's an intriguing thought. The CI could be your grilling equipment.
Yeah.
Consumable charcoals.
Ooh. So I'll have some sort of cooker. We'll use CI for that, because I think that could make sense. And we'll have some sort of cooker, and then we do need a fuel. And maybe this can be, when I select if I select a certain type of cooking device, then I get some specific types of fuel. I'm going to make this a reference. I think you guys tell me. I have this habit to make everything, like I will end up with no choice fields and make everything a reference, because it's possible that in the future I may need that to be a table that I'm going to reference.
I lean heavily towards reference as well, but I also know when a choice is the appropriate option. If it's 5 things and it's, A, B, C, D, E, that's a choice to me.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's make it a reference.
I think
'cause,
fuel is going to change often enough that a reference makes
Yeah,
sense.
fuel feels like
Yeah.
if you're out of Kingsford, you're going to go for the the generic brand, and you want to have a way to enter that and be able to adapt to that without having to go modify your choice list.
That's right. Jace has a good comment about not being able to buy the generic charcoal because it's not an approved vendor. I like that. All right. What else? What else? Adam, what else would you want to track if you're?
But we never added we talked about the cooker, but we never added a field for that.
I think we may use CI for that. So we already have a CI.
Yeah, we can quickly make a CI table.
Yeah.
Yep. What else? Fuel, ambient.
I mean, the biggest thing is you may need a reference qualifier on that.
Oh yeah.
You mean you're not cooking on a server blade?
I mean, you could get really creative. There's a lot of ways to sear a steak. So.
Some of my server blades have gotten pretty hot before.
Vacuum seal it and throw it in there. New version of sous vide. What else? Recipe, ambient temp, fuel. Do we want to track any ingredients on the cook?
Spices.
Ooh, that's a good point.
That would be part of the recipe. How about off recipe items?
Yeah, I think we will want to. So I think I'll probably want some sort of field where I tell it like, hey, I didn't quite follow the recipe directly here, because I actually have a lot of like, there are some sites where I really like the flavors that this person has, but then the technique they use I don't really like, and so I use a different technique.
So you could use the description field or even one of the journal fields to say, hey, I varied here. That way, if your feedback comes in higher, your survey results come in higher, you can go back and reference the notes on that particular cook.
That's right. So we've got description, comments, work notes, short description. We can use a lot of those.
Yeah, I don't the cut of the meat and the weight, since that can vary.
Yes, man. Should the cooker be the CI or should the meat be the CI? That's a great.
Seems like the meat's the consumable.
That's true. It is consumable. That's the whole point of this, right?
You consume the meat.
So, but it may not always be meat. So what do we? I guess we could call this food. That'd be a good one, and that's probably going to be a reference. And I'm already thinking of interesting ways we can input references in.
So Jace brings up an interesting idea that he says, personally, if I had a thing on my phone to track this, I'd want to enter very little while doing it. And I think if I understand your process correctly, you're going to enter this ahead of time. This is what I need to do. And then the phone would be for the quick updates. We're not going to be entering a whole bunch of information on the phone about, here's the meal, this is the recipe, this is what I'm going to be using for equipment. That would be, you're going to be out at the grill going, oh, quick note, I added extra salt. And, that's it.
Yeah, that is. So one of the goals of this is going to be to make it very easy to input into it. So that's a really good point. I'm not going to want to do a lot while I'm cooking it, but there are times where I might want to smoke like a fairly expensive brisket, and so for something like that, like it's going to take a long time, and I really want to track what I did to this, because if it's really good, then that's going to be great. If it's really bad, I want to make sure that I don't screw up a really expensive piece of meat again. Same with like a nice steak or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I will want to track some things, but that is a good point, because I'm not going to want to add a ton of stuff to this.
That's a very important point when you're thinking about the mobile experience. It's got to be get in, get out.
And ultimately, I think the flow for this, once I get it all going for me, is going to be my Wi-Fi thermometer. As soon as I plug it in and turn it on, it automatically starts a cook, and it's got a cloud API for that. And I'm going to want that to, what I really want is for that to like ping ServiceNow, set up a cook for me, and then ping me and say, hey, you need to fill in, the recipes and stuff that you're using. So
I was just about to ask that. What role does the thermometer play in our data model, or are you thinking about launching that over to metric base on a timed basis?
yeah, so let me save this table, and I meant to show this at the beginning, but let's go.
We've got
I don't know.
another 15 minutes.
Any last things here before we? I mean, the food was a pretty important one that I had forgotten about.
Nothing's coming to mind here.
All right. The nice thing is we can always add more fields to the table really easily.
So it's a single ingredient task. We're not like putting a whole meal on the grill and saying corn and meat.
Yeah, maybe we'll want to be able to group these together if I'm doing multiple things. But yeah, I think for right now, we're probably focusing on a single recipe here.
Cook management cook.
So
good prefix. Sometimes the obvious ones are what you go with.
There we go. So, all right, let's do it.
You need a number. Do you really need a number? I guess.
I mean, it's the task table. If it's going to give me a number automatically, I'll take a number. It doesn't cost me anything. And then I can be like, hey, remember Cook 0010005 3 years ago? That was a good one.
Well, yeah, especially if you do the same thing over and over. It's not like when we did in February of 1987.
Yeah, that's the problem is I have done enough of this to where I forget which ones I did well and didn't do well. So I wanted to show this real quick. This is the meat thermometer that I have. Is called a Fireboard, but it will do. I don't always label these very well, but yeah. So like here's one where I'm tracking the ambient temperature, and I did an okay job of keeping a temp in this one. And then I'm tracking, this looks like I was probably doing 2 different pork butts, and I'm tracking those temps. So this is the kind of thing that my thermometer will do, and it's got an API. And this is a nice, graph right here. And I'd like this to kind of correspond with one of the things I want to do in the cooking app is say, this is when I threw another log on. I don't know that I will actually track that, but it is something that people track when they're doing long cooks like this.
Yeah, that would be some sort of data point or
mm-hmm.
Like
so ultimately we want to integrate with this. That'll be a different show. First, we're going to set up the data model. All right, so we have our cook field. Our table is ready. So let's continue. So the other big table we want is that recipe table. I think for this one, we probably don't want to extend a table.
I would agree.
And I know a couple of things that I want for this are, I want a URL field. Let's just call this, it'll be called recipe. So we'll give it a link, and it'll be a URL field. Probably want the name of the recipe that will make a display field.
Mm-hmm. I wish the field type would default to string.
And I want this to be 100 characters, just in case.
If you want that as your display field, don't forget to pull down and check that.
Oh, great point. Yeah, so we have display and the mandatory. So let's make that our display field so I don't have to look at it in the list and see, why is there a sysID? And then think, oh, I never set it as the display field. All right, and then I think I'll also want, I want to track the source. So this could be, so there's a lot of websites that I, frequent, that I trust something from the site, and there's some cookbooks that I use that I trust, and so I think I'll want to have a source, because I could see me wanting to like look back at what I've done over the last 6 months and say, oh wow, I basically only cooked from this one place. Like, let's try something else.
Now, is that a reference also?
Yeah, I think it probably is a reference.
And you want any type of notes for the recipe? You said you wanted an image field on here at one point. I don't know if you can do that with that creator, because it gives you a limited number of field types. I can't remember if image was in there or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the purpose of this is probably just going to be to tell me, hey, this is what you used for this, and I'll probably follow the website because it may have a video or something like that. But that's a good question. One of my long-term, more pie in the sky goals is if there's a recipe that makes me do something at a certain time, it would be nice to say this is when I started and have it alert me like, hey, it's time to wrap this or add a sauce or whatever you're supposed to do. But we can do that when we come to it. We've got some
having flashbacks to Aaron Burris at ServiceNow and his burrito app.
So we've got some comments around rating. It might be nice to rate
the recipe,
a specific recipe. I think maybe when we add that into the cook, because I'm not sure whether we would want to. Yeah, I think rating is a good idea.
You could take a rating on the cook and then average them up and roll them up to the recipe. Say, this one, I've done this one 7 times and it averages a 4.2.
Yeah. So description and image is another suggestion.
Yep. You want to track the ingredients at all? Or do you just flag on the website?
I think I probably do want to track the ingredients somehow.
Related
That's probably... I don't think I will spend time, unless there's some way to automate it, which maybe there is. I can see myself copying and pasting a list of ingredients in. I don't really see myself even like putting them in a spreadsheet.
Not a significant piece of the data model is what you're saying.
Do it.
Not a significant piece of the data model.
It would be nice to generate a list of ingredients. Oh, 400, that's not right.
I'm thinking about LiquorBot, and Jason's got like the ingredients at the bottom in a related list of, 2 ounces of this and 4 ounces of that and half an ounce of such and such. And that makes up the recipe that's the parent record to all those related records. But that may be going a bit beyond what you want to do here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, go ahead, Adam.
Depends on if you want to track your ingredient stocks as well. Once you have that related list, you start consuming them.
Right. And then you can say, hey, this is what I'm cooking this week. This is my stock. Generate my shopping list.
Yeah, that's where the what is it, stockroom? What's the thing that has consumables in it?
Yeah, I think that's right.
They would play together if you wanted to go that way eventually. If that's in the bigger vision, maybe we do something like that. Or we take the quick and dirty approach now and bolt it on later.
Yeah, I think we do that for now. Because the problem, I mean, LiquorBot is great, but there's only so many cocktail ingredients. And then, you could cook a single recipe that has 30 ingredients easily. And those could be totally different than another 30 ingredients. And that's already a lot.
And Jason started with a predefined database of drinks and ingredients too. So that kind of drove his data model a little bit.
Yeah. So we have a suggestion for overall time for the recipe, or prep time and cook time. I think that's a good thing. Most recipe cards have a prep time and then a cook time. So you could even look at automating some of that.
Prep time, cook time, total time.
Let's do that. So prep time. Someone was just talking to me about durations. But
I learned a lot about durations and flow designer actions today.
So let's go prep time, cook time.
You know, right where to poke where it hurts. The wound is still fresh.
Just pour some salt on that. Tie it back to the cooking.
So that was well done.
What else?
This is probably one of the most active chats we've had, Brad. Nice topic.
Well, it's a fun topic because everyone has at least interacted with food. So even if you haven't cooked before, I would hope have eaten something.
Hey, there could be that one person out there who was raised on Soylent.
That's true. That's true. All right. You know what? What else we need? No, we have a reference to recipe from the cook, so we don't need another reference here.
Anything about required equipment, or are we going to assume?
Ooh, that is a good one.
Don't want to make a stir fry without a wok.
But it can be fun to do a recipe that requires something you don't have and improvise.
Julio is asking, did we get a rating on here, or did we want to do that somewhere?
We did not do a rating, but let's do a rating because we can always start with, like, this could just be a rating where I say, wow, I tried this and it was terrible, or, you know, hey, this is one I want to try again.
Integer or float? And what is the difference between decimal and float?
Floating point number.
If you wanted to average this, I would say then we want to float.
What is the difference between a float and a...
I haven't figured it out yet. I've wondered that every time. I did discover, what was it? When you're doing, there was something floats do that you can't do with decimals. Oh, it was currency. I'm sorry. When you have like numeric numbers and you need to do, what was it? Summing them up. There was something about, yeah, it was really nasty. I tend to default to floats even for money, but unfortunately you don't get the double precision every time.
Let's do, I don't think I always use integer for anything that's a number, but let's try a float. Rating, what else do we have in here?
What about difficulty?
Ooh, difficulty is good. I don't know that I would use that, but I like the idea of that. Because ultimately I would like to have a database of recipes and say, you know what, one of my kids could do this one. So I think that's a good one. Difficulty. And I think this could be a choice, but I'm going to choose integer so that I can then make it a choice.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because I think I can't think of a specific use case, but in the back of my head, I'm thinking I may want to like average or add these or do something like that.
Well, difficulty is generally going to be kind of like how we do our workshops and labs at Knowledge. You're going to have a 1 to 3 or a 1 to 5 just to glance at it and go, not for the faint of heart today.
Yeah. All right. I think that's good for recipe. So I want to get our other tables created. Ooh, how about author? So we have source.
And source refers to what?
Source would be either a book or a website or I have some recipe cards from mine and my in-laws that could be the source. But a single
author could be somebody's interpretation of the recipe, or if you wanted to go find all your favorite Gordon Ramsays, you could find them easier this way.
That's true, and you could have a person that goes through different sources. I like it. Let's add an author. This is one I don't know that I want to create another reference table, but
Just put the user table.
this is that's right. We can just create them user accounts.
In Gordon Ramsay for the user table. Why not?
Recipe author Abe Lincoln.
It always extends this user.
Jace wants a string. I'm kind of want a string, but we're gonna reference user here. You will notice that, and most people know this, but there's the import user table. When you type user, that's the first one that it shows up. That's not the one you want. You want this user. I feel like I always have to call that out. All right, I think we're good. Let's create it. So this was the recipe table.
We have a question. How do you extend sys user? Well, you go to the global scope, you get the table definition, and you click the extensible button. So when you go to configure table, you make it extensible. Because it's not out of the box unless you turn on, I think it's CSM does that for you. So there may be some instances where it's already extensible. I just did that, and that was all kinds of fun for my data model a couple of weeks ago.
I don't think I'm going to number recipes. Yeah, that's a decision that I just made. So we won't number recipes, although we could. All right, so those were the big tables, and then we had a couple other tables that. So we had a fuel table. So we'll create the fuel table real quick. I guess we could have extended and made fuel a consumable. Let's just create a fuel table here. It is a consumable. No, that's a good question, Jace. It is a consumable. I just don't think I want to go there. So it gets a name, and that's a string. I think 40 characters should be good. It gets a brand. Do we want to reference anything for brand?
Vendors.
All right, let's reference vendors. Let's do it.
Vendor type, vendor. Uh-oh.
Whereas,
Vendor what?
is vendor a company? I have a company.
There you go,
table.
core
Let's use
company. Let's make use of more system tables.
it. I am
extension app.
This may be it for fuel. So name.
What about type for pellets versus charcoal versus?
I do want to type. You're right.
Briquettes.
And we're gonna go choice. I haven't made a choice field yet. So drop down with none. I want wood, charcoal,
gas.
Let's say gas. It could be propane or natural gas,
I was
depending on where I'm
gasoline.
cooking. And pellets.
Naphtha.
What else? What else could I cook? Electricity.
Oh yeah.
I actually just got an induction burner to go in my outdoor kitchen, just in case I need it.
Induction plates are amazing.
All right, I think that's all of the things that I have ever cooked on.
Hasn't someone done something like this for home brewing?
I'm sure someone has done this specifically before, but Not that I saw.
Feels really familiar.
Brand type name. All right. Any other ideas for
the fuel?
the fuel? All right. I think that's a
Active.
no.
Put an active field on it.
Active. What would I use active for?
Reference qualifier later in case you decide not to use that particular type of fuel.
Ooh, that could be like a, do I have a thing that can use this? Like I'm probably getting rid of my pellet smoker.
I was thinking if the name was, Kingsford charcoal and you said, I'm never using Kingsford again.
Oh,
just
how dare
uncheck
you.
the active flag. Just about every new table I make has some sort of active field on it.
Yeah, I think we will want to go back and add active to fuel. So
maybe to your recipe table too.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't cook whale meat anymore, Brad. You better deactivate that one.
Well, I can't track it in my app that's available publicly for sure. Let's finish the app at this point.
You had like 4 other reference tables. I can't remember what they were.
I know, I can't remember what they are either. So we'll finish the app.
Yeah.
Because we're also running low on time.
These are the discussions we have.
But it's making these decisions at the beginning will affect you long term in your app. Whether you are doing something where you're cooking and a year from now I'm like, I have to spend 2 hours and go back and fix this in order to fix my cooks, or your company has to make some sort of big decision that affects 1 million records. So,
and regardless of how complex your app is, I mean, it could be, just tracking some numbers that used to be on a spreadsheet somewhere, or it could be something that runs your whole manufacturing procurement process that's really complex and has deep logic and scripts and flows all over the place. It could be no code, it could be pro code, but the data model is always that foundation that everything sits on.
That's right. So I just went ahead and did the standard mobile app creation. I'm going to do the same thing with Workspace, where I'm just going to say, you know what, cooking management. Actually, I'm going to make my Workspace cook because I'm into short URLs.
Tabbed.
And we will do tabbed.
I haven't found a use case not for it.
So the difference between them is that I don't get new tabs with single page navigation, but I get a list of breadcrumbs that builds itself, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So for tabbed, when I click on something that opens something, I get it in a new tab and I still have my old tab, which I generally like better, and I think most people do. I'm sure there is a really specific use case for the other one. We'll leave all of the options here for Workspace, and we'll keep them all on the left as well. One of the nice things that'll happen with Workspace is since we extended task, well, I guess it won't be that nice for us, but generally, because you extended task, you get a few different lists. So I think we'll get some lists based on some like unassigned, assigned.
Assigned to me.
Yeah.
My group's unassigned cooks.
Yeah.
Kind of funny when you think about it that way.
Could work for a restaurant.
Yeah.
Ooh.
All right. So let's be done and go to Studio, and let's look back at our. So what did we get? What did Guided App Creator create us here? So we got a good amount of mobile stuff because we have a few tables. We get some Workspace. We got access controls for all of our tables, which is pretty nice, and we got a bit of navigation.
But you also have a role per. No, you don't have a role per table.
I think I did this. Why do we have a cooking management?
I don't know what that one's all about. That's kind of weird.
I wonder if I did something when I created the table you selected.
I think as you create new tables, though, it's going to, by default, it will create a new role for that table. So you got to watch that. I haven't really found a use case why you need a new role per table. You need new ACLs per table, but generally it falls into the category if I got my admin, I got my user, I made an approver. It's the roles that were already set up that you just keep reusing.
That's a good point. Yeah. We
one of
do
the
not
mysteries
want
of-
new roles per table.
Yeah, guided app creator likes to do that, so watch out.
All right, so let's look at our cook table and let's look at some of those things. So fuel, we did create a fuel table. So let's go ahead and change that.
There it is. Oh,
Nope.
nope, don't do that. It will create you a new one. Top one.
There we go. All right,
Yeah.
and it has not updated yet, which is good to remember. Recipe, we did create a recipe table.
I could be pedantic and say, what's your ambient temperature, metric, or is it Fahrenheit or Celsius? You need an ambient temperature unit.
And then food. Did we create a? No, we created a fuel. We did not create a food table.
Just eat the fuel.
And then what were some of the other?
Well, you could filter on
where
reference.
we go?
Do a show matching on reference type.
That's a good point. Show matching on reference. So we had food.
I don't see
Were
any
those
more
the only ones?
applications. I think that was just it. We needed the food.
All right.
Oh, now you see how the first row doesn't have a red X? I think I finally figured out why. It dawned on me this morning.
Why is that?
If you change the sort order, it will show up on fuel. But the first one never has an X. There's got to be some implicit rule that says every table must have at least one column, so I'm not going to let you delete all columns.
Yeah, you are.
It's kind of a silly way to implement that, but that's the way I read it.
I think that's right. Yeah, that's a good call out. All right, we only have a couple of minutes. So one of the things I'm going to do is make sure that I have a display value on each of my tables. I know I already have one on this because we extended task.
Yep.
It's the number. I may change this at some point because number is not going to mean that much to me. Maybe it'll be a date, which may mean more. And then let's look at our fuel table. One of these I don't think we set one on. So it was fuel. So this is just one of the checks I always do after I'm done finishing the data model, or after I finish the data model. And then I know we set one on recipe, which was the name. So we will need, what was the, we will need to extend and create a new CI class for what we're using to cook. We will need to create a table for the food. And one of the things that I like to track, or I will want to track, is the grade of the meat. Like for beef, that's especially important. If I'm, cooking a vegetable, I probably want to know, like, is it organic or not? And that would be a good, like, does that matter? And we could actually see, does that matter? So some things like that. I don't think we'll have time to actually do that. We are at 5 till, but I don't know. You guys have anything we haven't talked about that you would want to track or call out or think about with this?
We got a lot done in an hour.
Do what?
We got a lot done in an hour.
We did. We got a good data model going there. Add the image, Jay says.
Add the image. Yeah, I just saw that.
All right.
That. To the recipe?
This riveting video. All right. Oh, takes me to the Slack. Let's just save it.
Oh yeah, the
Application image.
Jace's image. So
Yeah.
fast way there. Go back to your main browser tab, the standard UI.
Oh.
You might be able to do it through properties in Studio. That might be a faster way.
Oh yeah.
Where is it? Settings. I'm sorry, file settings.
Settings. That's right. All right.
Oh yeah, you do want the Slack message. Do you want me to Slack it to you?
I think I got it downloaded.
Okay.
Where there's a field, right?
Of
Logo.
Yep, that's it.
All right. Let's hope I have.
I would love to see this show up on a flow somewhere. There it is.
Nice.
Thank you, Jace. What a great way to finish off this this session. Then to add our. I'm not really sure what piece of meat that is, but
it's a weird shaped ham roll.
Be an interesting bone-in pork butt. All right. Well, let me take us out of the screen share here.
Wait, I didn't finish my beer.
Chug.
So here we go. I think that worked correctly.
Let me see if I can put my beer back here.
All right. Well, I think we were mostly successful with creating the data model for our app. We created a few tables and talked through some of our decisions. When do we do different things? Obviously, I love reference tables and will default to that just in case I need it at some point. But the one thing with reference fields is they are generally not quite as user-friendly as a choice field. People,
as a postlude, is there an opportunity that you can see for a many-to-many table?
I think yes. So I have thought about many-to-many for recipes if I'm using like different pieces of multiple recipes, which is something that I tend to do. I could be cooking more than one thing, although, I may have two different cook records for that. Or multiple fuels. There's definitely a scenario where you're cooking with charcoal and, wood chunks, or you got wood chips on a gas grill, or you're searing or reverse searing something, which reverse searing is wonderful, where you're doing two different things. So the device you're using, I think, definitely could be a many-to-many.
Should have a meal that contains multiple recipes or cooks.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
Table.
I was thinking of a cook, like a parent-child cook, but I like a meal that has multiple cooks on it, because
then you could have this.
You got your corn.
That feels like a many-to-many to me.
Yeah. Nice. I like that one. So need to add a meal table. Thanks for being here, guys. So before we leave, we need to rate our beverages. So we'll start with Adam. We rate on a 0.25 scale. When we achieve success, it usually gives it a little bit of a bump. I think we were successful today.
I think we were successful.
So between 1 and 5. 0 and 5. 1 and 5. Well, 0 and 5. 0.
Yeah, we have had some zeros, haven't we?
But we'll start with Adam.
So I give the Sam Adams Summer Ale a 3.75.
Nice.
Better than the middle, but not my favorite.
Remind me again, which Sam Adams was that?
It's the Summer Ale Citrus Wheat.
Okay. So my Heffy would go along with that. I did not throw any fruit in here, no oranges or anything, into the Shreeties Baltus. I like this. This is nice. I'm going to give this a solid 4.
Nice.
4.25 with our victory win.
4.25. Nice. Well, I had the barrel-aged Innis and Gun, and it was. I'll give it a 4 with the victory bump. It was pretty good. I was expecting a little more from it, but that's fine. Yeah, so we set up our data model. We will definitely follow on. I think we are not going to have a show next week because of the July 4th holiday in the US. But the following Friday, I think we will revisit this topic as kind of a before and after, July 4th cookout type thing. But we'll revisit this and maybe do our REST integration with the Wi-Fi thermometer.
You've got a production deadline, bro. You've got a production deadline to get this done by the 4th of July weekend cookout.
That's right. That's right.
You can test it.
So maybe we'll do that one. Maybe we'll all be outside for that one. Who knows? Who knows what we'll do for that? But thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks, Chuck and Adam, and everybody have a good weekend.